Sunday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern here on BeyondRingside.com. Join us for the Midnight Black Mass. Myself, the Reverend Dan Wilson, brings you the dark gospel of professional wrestling, uncensored, unedited, uncut, and not for the faint of heart. You can find out more about us at youtube.com/pottyhumor or subscribe at Potty Humor on iTunes and Stitcher today.
Forget all you know about podcasts. We welcome you to an experience uniquely different. Please join us for our coverage of all entertainment on the fringe of society. The candles are lit, the lights are down low. It is now time to welcome our host as he steps up to the pulpit. The sacrifice has been prepared for the midnight black mass.
Ghastly greetings, groovy ghoulies, and welcome to another edition of the Midnight Black Mass. Yet another cool, crisp autumn evening as I stand outside the compound, bathing in the moonlight. I am the devil you know, the Michael Mister, the occult, the Reverend, the Dragon, Dan Wilson, the host of this here extravaganza. And my tag team partner with me, as always, the Southeastern Strangler. He's been the Empire Wrestling Matchmaker. He's been a scoundrel and a ne'er-do-well. The one and only Andrew Alexander. How are you, man?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm fan-fucking-tastic. Finer than Filipino frog hair, cut 5 ways.
I feel that you have a book of these random weird ass Rev Saudi Daisy sayings.
It's in my noggin, and it comes from being raised here in good old Saudi Daisy. One of the few benefits, but I suppose there are some. So I had a pretty eventful weekend. Both myself and yourself were involved in a good old-fashioned hoedown. We celebrated the nuptials of the one and only great Muji. Of course, a member of the Midnight Black Mass universe, who you may have heard us talk about.
The MBM universe.
That's right. So you may have heard me talk about on episodes past. So you may have even listened when he was a co-host or when he came on for his horror movie segment, the Muji Movie Minute. You might have heard him on Get You Pulled. But more importantly, he's been my best friend since we were like 3 years old. And so he had his wedding, long-awaited wedding to his lovely wife. And I was actually bestowed the honor of being the official for that wedding, and so now as a result I'm officially licensed, so you can book me for your wedding extravaganza if you'd like. No wedding is too big, no wedding is too small. I could be the Reverend in full attire, regale, and ceremonial garments. I could be the Dragon in a douchey 2000s t-shirt with flames on it, or a collared shirt with flames on it. Don't have any hair in the front to spike up anymore, though, so you're going to get a modified version of that. But I'll ask, how the hell are you? You can book me. I might even call a spine splitter on the dance floor, but shoot me an email at dragonsrejects@gmail.com if you want me to come officiate your wedding as the Reverend. But anyway, so yeah, I made it through that unscathed, and it was fairly successful. Got a nice pop when I came out for the wedding party introduction after my performance, so I was happy with that. You also were one of the groomsmen, and I saw you out there trying to snag those out-of-town bridesmaids. So what was your success rate?
Did I really try to do that?
I don't think you had to try. You just have that animal magnetism.
Yeah, I enjoyed Moogie's wedding and the fruits of the labors of the Moogie wedding.
Fantastic.
I can confirm that he did an outstanding job as literally the Reverend. I think it would be odd to have the dragon or the Reverend in character do a wedding, but each their own. But you, as just a real human being, saying nice things and marrying people was quite successful, and I would highly recommend it to anyone that likes you or knows of you or thinks that you could do that. I would definitely recommend it. And I have to say that I'm quite the groomsman, so if you just want short, I'll work cheap. I work for food and gas money, all of the wrestling business. You got to pay for the tux, though. I ain't renting that shit. I mean, I rented it for Moogie's, but I know him. But I can come in. I can distract. I can distract bratty children. I can give toast. I can run interference on singles bridesmaids if need be. Anything you need, I can do it.
Yes, you take on the poor man's burden of entertaining the single bridesmaid. I know it's such a challenge for you, but you just grin and bear it like a true champion.
You have literally no idea.
Well, there you have it, the Midnight Black Mass Wedding Services. We even have a DJ with our producer, Fat Layne. So hit us up. We'll come turn your wedding into a party.
Amen.
I put ho and ho down.
That he did. So congratulations to the great Moogie. I hope he's enjoying his vacation in the Caribbean, now just eking past the hurricane season. And shout out to all the folks of all the loss of life in the hurricanes, man. That was rough. I saw like 900 people died in Haiti, and they're still pulling them out. Man, that's awful. Like, everybody was worried that it was going to really devastate the U.S., and it did in parts, but, compared to what they got, it was a drop in the bucket. So, thoughts, condolences, and all of that out to those folks. But it was a fine weekend for some professional wrestling. The weather's cooling down, always makes a good atmosphere and a good time to go catch some matches. And I was in Cornelia, Georgia at Why We Wrestle at the famed Church of Southern Wrestling for a huge card that was the final stop on the way home to Fright Night 2016, which will occur on October 22nd at the church. And it will be Fright Night, Last House on the Left, the first Fright Night under the Why We Wrestle banner. And so the big main event, got a double main event. It will be a steel cage match, career on the line, Nemesis versus Jacob Ashworth. That feud has gone on since the beginning of Why We Wrestle, almost a full year. And it just has reached a boiling point. Danny Only canceled the slave contract and said that it had to be settled before something bad happened. So it's going to occur in the cage at Fright Night. Winner take all, loser is done with Why We Wrestle. So that's going to be an interesting proposition. We also got the Why We Wrestle Triple Crown Championship on the line. The champion, the People's Captain with the legendary Jeff G. Bailey, Gunnar Miller, will be defending his title against the former champion, the man he quite frankly robbed for the title, the Lethal Dose Strychnine, who's really pissed off, got a lot of vengeance on his mind, and that is going to be one hell of an epic throwdown. The last time Gunnar Miller tangled with Strychnine, when he won the belt, he had already assaulted Strychnine earlier in the evening, so Strychnine came stumbling out for the match at about 50%. It's 100% Strychnine versus 100% Gunnar Miller, and the sparks are going to fly, folks, so you definitely don't want to miss that. Also, we've seen the rivalry with Slim J and Kevin Blue heating up. So at Friday night, we found out that this past Saturday night, it's going to be a tables, ladders, and chairs match to settle their score. Kevin Blue versus Slim J, and we're told another stipulation will be added to that night of that is going to be announced then. So a lot on the line there. Of course, it all started off with the very personal comments that Kevin Blue and Slim J made about one another. They've basically dominated the summer fighting with each other. They took each other on a summer of hate back in July, and it ended up in a DQ finish and just a brawl all over the building. Like, these guys hate each other, so they're going to settle it with everything that isn't tied down. So they're not climbing up trying to grab a contract. They're going to use that ladder to try to beat each other's brains in, and that's going to be a match that you have to see at the church on October 22nd. No buns about it. Also going to crown the first ever Why We Wrestle Women's Champion in a 4-way elimination match. It will now be Dementia DeRose versus Nina Monet versus the powerhouse Jessica Lee of the Southern Bastards crew versus Crystal Rose. That's actually a veteran wrestler from back to the Wild Side days that totally made herself over, come back with this whole new attitude and really got a great support from the fans, and it's kind of been this scrappy underdog. So got a really nice combination of ladies there, all going to be vying for that gold first ever women's championship. It will be elimination style. Going to be a historic night there, and the Devil's Rejects will be in action. I'll be there with the Deadly Sin 7, Death Wish Brad Cash, and the Son of Satan Azrael as we tangle in 6-man competition against Elijah Evans and the Big Effin' Deal, the 6'8", 400-pound Jeter, and Brian Blaze, his partner, 2 tough customers. So 3 tough customers, including Evans. We definitely have our work cut out for us, but Evans picked a fight, said if he had some friends, he should bring them. So he brought them. I got mine, and it's going to be a fun old time. We're going to have us a little Halloween party, boys. Devil's Reject style, of course. But don't want to miss that. Also in a special challenge match, Wild Billy Buck will be taking on the Hit for Hire Bobby Moore. And for the Why We Wrestle tag team titles, the tag team champions, the Monarchy, Black Baron and Prince Apollo, will be defending the titles against the Lynch Mob. But it looked like Joey Lynch was taken out of commission. So will Matt Fortune be on his own? Will he possibly be calling upon another Lynch family member that we've seen? You'll have to show up to Friday night on the 22nd to find out. A lot of exciting stuff, though. Andrew?
Yeah, that sounds fun, man. Sounds like a hell of a card. Looking forward to hear about what happens with a couple of those. A couple of interesting situations there for sure, especially with some of the former Empire roster, like the Lynch Mob and Gunnar Miller. Always interested to see what they're up to, and Bobby Moore and Billy Buck. That's an old rivalry from a few years ago, but those guys always tear the house down. So pretty jam-packed card.
Yeah, it is. I look forward to it, and going to be a big night for the Church of Southern Wrestling. And just 2 days removed from the first ever all-women's card in the history of the church on Thursday night, October the 20th, While We Wrestle in partnership with Madman Promotions presents Girl Fight, an all-women's card with some of the top female talent in the country appearing. Current NWA World Women's Champion Amber O'Neal Gallows will be in attendance. Mickey Knuckles, one of the toughest female wrestlers in wrestling history, for my money, will be there. Sue Young, the Vampire Queen, who's making a lot of waves right now, will be in attendance. And, of course, all of the Why We Wrestle women's roster stars like Dementia DeRose, Aza Pereira will be making her last appearance before she goes to Mexico for a whole month in November. Nina Monet, Crystal Rose, Jessica Lee, all of those, and even some new faces debuting in addition to that. You don't want to miss it. Thursday night, October 20th. You can get a combo ticket, $20, get you in the door for both shows, and regular price $15 a piece. That's a $10 savings. You want to find out more, go to facebook.com/thisiswhywewrestle, on Twitter @whydouYouWrestle, on Instagram @thisiswhywewrestle, or email thisiswhywewrestle@gmail.com for more information.
That's a lot of information right there. I hope people are taking notes. The social media findings of Why We Wrestle.
And
what you really need to worry about with While We Wrestle is address to the building. That's where you need to get your information from.
what's that?
The information. If you want information on While We Wrestle, the address to the building is important. You need to just come to the show. Don't worry about checking all of these other outlets. Just come to the show every week. It's going to be good.
Damn right. Damn right. So, Andrew, I understand you wanted to talk a little bit about No Mercy, not the popular late 90s, early 2000s N64 wrestling game that is considered the gold standard amongst all video game fans, but actually the WWE pay-per-view from last night.
No, I meant the Nintendo 64 video game.
Oh, okay. Well, let's shoot. Go.
I mean, it is pretty amazing that along with, the WCW NWO Revenge game, they're still very, very good games. They hold up well, and I mean, I think that's not just something that me and you would say. That's a vast majority of wrestling fans and video game fans alike would stay behind. I mean, the WCW Revenge game, that has to be the best WCW video game of all time. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, it's not even close. I mean, they didn't have any other good ones, so...
What about Backstage Assault, where there's no ring at all? I never played that, but it sounded like a huge piece of shit, which WCW was well known for pumping out. But in all seriousness, yes, No Mercy pay-per-view event last night. Pretty interesting card with some twists and turns and things. For starters, they opened the show with the main event, first time in their history, and I can't think of that happening at any wrestling promotions events. But their main event opened the show. Pretty good match with AJ Styles retaining the World Championship. Were you able to watch this yet?
I have. I watched the main event, and I watched a couple of the other matches, but I haven't seen like most of the other featured matches. But I did watch that, and hell of a match. I mean, I know I'm a little biased, but is there anybody in the business better than AJ right now? I mean, my God, like what a great matchup that was. Just kind of showcasing off everything those three guys can do. They told a really good story. Three absolute pros just, putting it together out there, man. That's what it's all about. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was really good. I mean, they're really stepping up the game. I mean, the business keeps evolving, but with these multiple man matches with like a triple threat or a fatal four-way, it's really changed a lot, the way they're put together and the way they're executed. I mean, you still see some of the same, and I'm not going to go into detail and giving away secrets, but some of the things still happen, but a lot of the time it's just three guys going at it, really hard-hitting, fast-paced action, and it's tough to pull off, and those guys did a great job. It's interesting to see, I would be interested to see the paychecks for No Mercy, because clearly the main event of this show was the heavyweight title match, as it typically should be. But with it going first, do Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt get a little bit of a pay bump? Do they bring home a little bit more than the three guys in the opening match, since they were actually technically the main event?
Maybe, but as a rule, I wouldn't think so, because they still advertised the opening match as the main event, even though it was the opening match. They were like, this is your main event, and it's going on first. So, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, like I said, I think it's possible, but if you're going by just the general rule of how they typically advertise and do things, I would say probably not.
Well, let's get AJ Styles on the show and ask him what his pay was. That's not invasive.
No, not at all.
Because, one example that comes to mind is SummerSlam 92, where the main event going into the show was the Ultimate Warrior versus Randy Savage for the title. But the closing match of the night, and now what is always regarded as the main event was the Intercontinental title match with Bret Hart and British Bulldog, which is one of the greatest matches of all time, as everyone knows. Which brings me to the next point about No Mercy. Because even when the WWE makes decisions that I find to be really stupid, I try really hard to see why did they do that. Because when you run a show, you're used to people questioning every decision you make. And usually you'll have a reason for it, and they just won't understand it. So I always wonder why they do some of the things they do. And I usually can see why, even if I don't agree with it, I get it. I have no idea why they would not choose to close that show with the Intercontinental title match with Miz versus Dolph Ziggler.
Thank you.
In the career versus title stipulation. I don't get it. I don't understand, because I think if you put that on last, it further tells people there's a great chance that Dolph Ziggler is going to lose and going to retire, and that's going to be the send-off of the pay-per-view, his big final hurrah, as opposed to it going on, close to the middle of the show or, towards the end of the show, but not last. And they just absolutely killed it. I thought they had the best match of the night, and I just don't understand why that wouldn't close the show.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, because you think they put about an equal amount of TV time and promotion into both of those matches. And so one of them being for a belt, you think it's like a good opportunity to showcase the importance of the Intercontinental. Like, okay, so they're in the main event for the belt. It's not the heavyweight belt, but it's still a belt, and it's in the main event. Put the spotlight on it. Seems simple enough. I'm sure they have their reasons, but yeah, good question.
Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton, obviously good guys. They had a good match. There was a surprise return with Luke Harper, who I think is a hell of a talent, but he's definitely a mid-card talent at this point. He's been off TV for a while. I don't know if that's exactly the type of surprise. I mean, this wasn't an Undertaker return or a Brock Lesnar or a Cena. I don't know if that surprise warrants going last, especially when he just barely caused a distraction. I can't fathom the decision to why that match wouldn't go on last. It's just really, I just so badly want to know so I can understand what the thought process was. Because even on, if you've ever checked out Talking Smack, which I would recommend, it may be my favorite WWE show. I think it's just very well done. It's on that line of shoot and work that everyone loves, and I just think it's really well done. And if you don't watch the show, you can get caught up as if you did watch the show. Obviously, taking from the Talking Dead, show that comes on after Walking Dead, which is also a good show. I don't watch it religiously, but I have seen it, and I think it's very good. But Dolph Ziggler basically said, hey, this is a situation like tonight where the Intercontinental title should get to close the show, and that's a way you can make that title important again, which they've been trying to do for a long time with some success, but there's been spurts of the title just seeming very non-important, and I think this would have really given it a boost like you give to the women who main evented Raw last week.
Thank you.
To say, hey, the Intercontinental title was the main event of a pay-per-view because it's important. It matters. And Daniel Bryan actually backed him up and said, I agree, you should have closed the show. And that's kind of, it seems like one of those things that's not scripted, that they're saying because they genuinely feel it and believe it, because, I agree with them. So it's just very interesting coming off the show, those two things, the main event opening the show and then why that wouldn't go last. But I thought the show was good overall, and those two matches just absolutely killed it.
Yeah, I've heard good things, so that's good. And, the pay-per-views, 2 a month is a hard thing to pull off, but they seem to have done it with some level of success. But the SmackDown pay-per-views seem to be getting more love than the Raw ones right now. SmackDown seems to be on a bit of a resurgence, so that's cool. Anytime anything is consistently good, that's a good thing. People seem to be really with the storytelling they got going on right there now.
Yeah, I personally prefer SmackDown. I don't even know if it's just because it's shorter, because I don't even watch the full version of Monday Night Raw. But it seems that definitely has something to do with it, because they just use their time a little more wisely, I think. But Raw has awesome talent. It's just I do prefer watching SmackDown. I think they've got top to bottom a really good roster of people that are working really hard and putting together, really good shit. And I don't know what it is. I don't even know how to explain it. Why Raw definitely seems to be dragging behind since the split, and I think they are doing a good job of the pay-per-views, because they are keeping them separate. They are making them seem like, it's legit. If you want to see AJ Styles and Cena and Ziggler and Miz and these guys, you got to check out that SmackDown pay-per-view. And if you want to see Owens and Reigns and Rollins and those guys, you've got to see the Raw pay-per-view, and they're not mixing it up yet too much. And so it generally is, you're watching and you're like, oh, I wonder what AJ's doing. Oh, fuck, he's not on this pay-per-view. Have to wait 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. So I think the pay-per-views are doing well right now. Just the weekly TV, there's still a lot of exposure, a lot of content and shit that's just kind of hard to keep up with. If I was 13-year-old Andrew Alexander living in the wrestling world we have now, I would be fucking ecstatic, because I would be a bigger wrestling nerd than I was then, and I would just live on the WWE network. But not everyone's 13 years old, so it's hard to keep up with all of the content that they pump out.
Oh, I know. I'm even behind on like a lot of the classic content. Like they put up all that stuff from '89 that I still haven't made my way through. And like that's all stuff I'm dying to see. But television is coming back now. It's the fall, and so I get in wrestling. If it's good, I'm gonna always make a point to watch it. But sometimes I might get backed up. But it is also work. So you want to watch enough of it to still study and do your homework and keep fresh on what's going on. But you also don't want everything to be related to work, because then you feel like it's kind of an inescapable trap. So, I make room for a lot of just regular entertainment-based programming that has nothing to do with wrestling. So a lot of that been coming back. We talked about some last week. But so what's coming up for the WWE? What, they got Survivor Series coming up again in November? Is that still a thing that's happening?
Yeah, I think the next one is Hell in a Cell, which is definitely highly rumored that it will feature the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match, which I think is really good timing. The story and feud that Sasha Banks and Charlotte have had going into it, I think it warrants it. I think it's really smart. And they have good matches, man. I think if you saw their main event last week, and Charlotte did this fucking crazy corkscrew moonsault from the top rope to the floor, which was just, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing to see anyone do that, but you factor it is a woman that they typically have not done wrestling moves like that. It was just breathtaking. It was crazy. So I'm sure they'll do something insane in a Hell in a Cell match. Hopefully they won't get injured or kill themselves, because we have talked about that, how guys and gals are taking kind of too many risks. But then Survivor Series will be, I guess it'll be that first kind of inter-promotional, well, SummerSlam happened, so I shouldn't say the first, but the next inter-promotional pay-per-view. So that'll be interesting to see. And it's rumored, highly rumored, that we're going to see the return of Goldberg in that to face Brock Lesnar, which is, it's interesting.
What? I remember, really?
Yo, yeah, you haven't heard about this? Like, it is, it's all but confirmed. It's that hot of a rumor that it's going to happen to really capitalize on the video game being released and things such as that, which Goldberg's a part of, and Lesnar's on the cover. Man, and it's hot, and I love to see anything that's hot and has some steam behind it, but I remember their first match, and it was fucking garbage.
Well, like, what does Goldberg mean in 2016? I mean, Sting's one thing. He's a bona fide wrestling legend. He had a career that was like 10 years long before he even became the Crow and, you know, had all of that success, and he was a top guy before that. So, you know, that's one thing to bring him back after such a long absence. And Goldberg was like one of the hottest stars in the business just for like a 2 or 3 year period. And like, we're so far removed from even when he came back to the WWE as kind of a nostalgia act at that point. Like, I don't know. I guess. I mean, he is a star. You know, he's in the video game, like you said, and they tried to make a big deal out of him. So maybe it is a big deal, but I'm just having trouble wrapping my brain around it. What do you think?
I agree, but I mean, that nostalgia always works and always sells. And there's not a lot left. There's not a lot of guys that can physically come out and be a part of the show, other than just kind of a speaking part. I think it's going to feel. I mean, it'll be. Let's see what they do with it, but it seems like it's going to be forced, whatever they do, because they have had the one match. It was a train wreck. I think a lot of people would agree with me there. I just don't. It just seems like they're using. Okay, Goldberg mentioned the comeback on ESPN and other media outlets. He's brought up Brock Lesnar. I guess because, you know, Brock Lesnar is the kind of the guy, that indestructible force right now. So Goldberg, I guess, maybe selling pride or whatever, saying, hey, you know, fuck that guy, or maybe even I beat him before. And then, you know, Paul Heyman snaps back with comments, and I actually heard Paul Heyman would be on Raw tonight. I haven't looked in to see if that's happening, but if it is, it only seems like that's really the direction they're going in. I don't like things when they're really super forced, but when it is something like that, you just have to take it for what it is and just try to enjoy it. And I'm really curious, because if you're Goldberg, and I don't believe that anyone shouldn't be just like willing to put people over, quote unquote. But if you're booking Goldberg, do you really want to bring Goldberg back in that capacity, even if it's one match, to just have him put someone over? Even if it's Brock Lesnar, if it's The Undertaker, if it's Steve Austin or The Rock, that's not that Goldberg character. The fans of Goldberg that will be excited do not want to see him lose. But I'm not going to if I'm going to put Brock Lesnar under somebody, it's not going to be somebody coming back for one time. So I think this is another example of them booking themselves in a corner too. Like, I think we'll definitely see some sort of disqualification here.
They don't want to see him lose, but they didn't want to see him in 20-minute matches either, and that didn't stop him when he came to WWE.
Well, that's true too. That's true too. Yeah, and I mean, and Lesnar has a really different style now than he did. But it involves the guy he's facing doing a lot of selling and a whole lot of bumping. And that's not the Bill Goldberg that I'm familiar with seeing.
When you think of Goldberg's strong suits, neither of those things come to mind. And, you know, he's known as being a reckless dude, and you know, Lesnar is a shooter. So I think they're trying to drum up a little bit of half a shoot here, where they just get these guys in here so pissed off they're not going to want to fucking cooperate.
I wouldn't doubt that either. That's definitely happened in the past. But if anything, it's going to create buzz. It's something interesting that even casual fans are going to come back and want to see. And diehard fans are going to, even if you shit on it, you're going to watch it. You're going to see how are they going to do this? What's going to happen? What are they going to do? And the business has changed a lot now to where the stuff's a lot more produced, and it's a little less sometimes in-ring work and more just, here's the story we're telling, and it's going to get told exactly like we want to. So it could turn out to be something good and entertaining opposed to their first match. But I hate it. I haven't watched it in forever, but it's one of the worst WrestleMania matches ever. And to be those two type of star guys, that's not what you want to hear or say about a WrestleMania match. But I thought it was just the worst. But
Wasn't the deal with that one like they were both leaving and it got let out early that it was their last match with the company, so the crowd just shit all over both of them?
Yeah, exactly. I think more so Lesnar at the time, who was the heel. But yeah, it was in Madison Square Garden. That New York crowd is not to be trifled with. It was both of their last matches. Austin was the special guest referee, and I don't even know if that it was meant to help it, but I don't know if it did because the crowd was just into him, and rightfully so. It just wasn't a good. It wasn't a good situation. In WrestleMania 20, I thought was a good card. It was a really long show. I think probably the longest WrestleMania they've ever done because it was purposely set to be like 5 hours. So I think it's interesting. It's definitely going to stir up talk and chatter in the wrestling world. So I'm sure that's the goal of it. So they're accomplishing that. Be very interesting to see, though. Especially, and I think it is. I think it does help it too because this isn't a WrestleMania. It's not something that's going to have all of that hype to where it's just got to be so great or people will shit on it. It's Survivor Series, and Survivor Series is not WrestleMania. So I think a little of the pressure is off of it in that regard.
I mean, it's at least the equivalent of driving down the road in Tijuana and seeing a live donkey show. I mean, you might not be enthusiastic about it, but you're going to watch.
That is a perfect comparison. Very good.
So that's interesting. Well, that's what's going on in the big leagues. Fast Eddie Layne had posed a question before we went on the air that apparently the topic of the week this week on the Beyond Ringside Radio Network, ProWrestlingRadio.net, was what was your favorite authority figure in professional wrestling? That's a good question. I got a couple of answers, easy answers, depending on how the question's phrased. Really, Andrew, you want to chime in?
That's tough. I mean, I don't look back on the Attitude Era and just love it as much as a lot of people do as far as actual in-ring content. But man, you can't deny that McMahon shit. I mean, with Austin, anything that's been done since then is kind of compared to or even taken from. So it's kind of even hard to say anything but that. But I mean, I can't even really think of one that even comes remotely close because a lot of them were short term. Pretty much most of them were short term. I think Bischoff, when he was running Raw in that role, was pretty. I mean, I thought he did pretty damn good with that, and it was such a shock when he showed up.
Yeah, that's not a bad answer. I think there's been some entertaining guys in the spot, but I think it's an overdone spot. I'm about sick of it in wrestling entirely, but it seems like you have to have some authority figure at some level. But, you didn't always. Sometimes it was just like, okay, the fucking management has sent word through the announcers that this is what's going to happen. And then, but eventually something's going to get out of hand, so you got to call in President Jack Tunney. I mean, he's an all-time favorite authority figure of a lot of people, but here's what I see. So if you're looking at the modern authority figure, I think you're absolutely right. I think Vince McMahon, the Attitude Era, everything that has followed suit since, especially every heel authority figure, is a derivative of that. And nobody's going to do it better than Vince. So even though you had a guy like Teddy Long was decent for a time and on SmackDown, when he was a heel GM, fucking Eric Bischoff wasn't bad in his role. There's some, sometimes, but all of that shit is just totally derivative of Vince and his role. and nobody could ever out-Vince Vince. So if you're looking at, like, the heel modern version of that, then I'd say that Vince wins hands down. But, you know, if you're looking at authority figures all over, like my favorite personally, all time, Cowboy Bill Watts from Mid-South.
Yep.
Nobody was a better, like, especially, I like a babyface authority figure preferably, because technically they should be enforcing the rules, and if, like, the whole promotion is part and parcel to fucking the guys over, then, like, everything's kind of tainted to a degree, and you really lose any ability to, like, sell it like a real sport. Like, it's accepted hokum at that point, and that's fine if that's what you're going for, because wrestling is, in theory, accepted hokum all the way around, but, you know, if you're trying to craft a reality where everything's like, this is supposed to feel like legit, like a real sport, then, you know, I don't think you can go wrong with the babyface authority figure. If you got a guy like Cowboy Bill Watts, who was just the best, he would go out, because he was a great worker and a great talker, and so he could go out there and cut those impassioned promos about the heels crossing the line and why they did wrong, well, you know, why they did what they did was wrong, and the whole morality and reasoning behind it, and why the promotion wasn't going to be part and parcel to it. And so, yeah, so my ultimate answer overall is Cowboy Bill Watts.
Yeah, going back to Jack Tunney, I definitely, that's, as a just a total fanboy, I would pick him just because, you know, I love that time frame of the WWF, and even though he had a limited role, it seemed very legit. Like, he would just come out when something was important, and he would say it, and boom, it was done. It wasn't, you know, he wasn't so much as a character as on there all the time, getting involved in things such as that. So it had that real feel to it. Even though we know definitely he was just an on-screen character, but yeah, I love some Jack Tunney, and I in part of the Eric Bischoff run, the thing when Austin was like the co-GM and the way they played off each other, like, I think if that was on Raw now, it would be fucking gold, because it was very entertaining stuff, and you really can't go wrong with Stone Cold. But yeah, Bill Watts, that's a great answer too. I didn't even really think about that, because like you said, he wasn't. Now when everyone hears authority figure, it's automatically a heel, and they're automatically involved, because, you know, basically stemming from the Attitude Era with Vince. But I love that realism that this guy's in charge, and he's by the book, and wrestling has rules, and it's legit, and all of that. And that's just, it almost feels like it can't even happen anymore, but definitely wish it could.
I think it's just a reality that you craft. You know, it's not going to happen in WWE because that's not what they're selling. But a new promotion could do that. I mean, Ring of Honor tries to do that, but they also have to cater so hard to their niche of fans that there's handcuffs on them really being able to do that effectively. So, but yeah, you know, I think with the right athletes in particular, you need big guys that can work and little guys that can work. There's a lot of great little guys that can work. Very few big guys nowadays that can go. I mean, there's a lot of good ones, but there's, you know, the stigma around big dudes, and to sell that legit athletic. Like Bill Watts always sold his Mid-South wrestling like it was a legit competition to the NFL or Major League Baseball. You know, these were legit pro athletes. These were not little skinny kids in gym shorts.
Yeah, it was a lot different. And thinking back to him, you know, as far as growing up and seeing it more regularly, him on WCW had that same kind of feel, even though he maybe even took it too far at times, especially for the time frame, because the business had already started evolving quite a bit. But it's so fun to go back and watch that stuff and watch the stuff that he did as far as I just miss the way they used to do a lot of stuff with the way they carried interviews and things such as that, and just treated it. I don't know, treated it like it was real, but didn't worry about the people that knew it wasn't. Does that make sense? You know, like,
Yes.
so worried about, oh, we don't want to sound silly. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you would have, this is the era of the Rock and Roll Express music videos and the fantastic music videos, for God's sakes. I mean, you put those on now, like, I don't even think you could probably watch the Fantastics music video on your work computer and not get flagged for inappropriate content. Or not the Fantastic, but the Fabulous ones. You know what I'm talking about, the Billy Squire.
Oh, hell yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
I miss the hell out of those type of things. Like
all of that was perpetually silly. Like Jim Ross stumbling out to the fucking Junkyard Dog's property with a goddamn blindfold on is one of the fucking silliest things ever, but it worked.
I mean, some of those things you look back on and you're like, wow, I can't believe this is for a babyface character, because nowadays this would work, but it would get them so much heat. But there's just almost none of that type of stuff done, and I miss that so much. Just those type of vignettes, and I think that could work today, especially on Raw. That's 3 hours. Do something different. Take chances. Do something fucking ridiculous, and I mean, at least try. At least see what happens.
Oh, let me tell you, I love a goddamn music video. And I love a coming soon vignette. I think both of those hugely effective tools that are not utilized nearly enough in 2016. And like, okay, on the indies, it's really stupid, because what I've pitched to guys a few times, and I've not seen, I've seen a couple guys do it, and I don't even know if I pitched it to them, but they're just smart businessmen, guys like the Viking War Party, will get their shit put together in a music video, like, couple up with a band who will contribute music, so it's like this original thing, and get it made, and they'll ship it out to promotions that they're about to debut in, so that they can play it on their social media, their TV, their whatever, in advance of them coming. And like, every dude should have a package of a music video to give to a new place that you're about to come into. I mean, like, it's easy way to get yourself over to the audience before you step in front of the curtain.
Absolutely. I mean, I think now I can see what would be a little tougher as a sale because of NXT, because you kind of get to know them beforehand anyway, but not everyone watches NXT, so I think it can still be done.
That's one of the assumptions. I was going to say, that's one of the assumptions that everybody watches that show, and they don't, because a lot of times you feel like Bayley came out and got a huge response, but she's also been all over all of their other TV. She's appeared on the show before, like they've talked about her. The other characters have mentioned her. You know, she's been around, but some of these other characters, like Apollo Crews, you know, huge star in NXT, debuted to very little fanfare on the main roster. And I think he's a guy who hugely could have benefited from some video packages or, you know, coming soon things. Like, they can't go with the assumption that everybody watches NXT, because it's a very popular brand, but, you know, they're still broadcasting on basic cable, and everybody that watches wrestling on basic cable is not seeking out the WWE Network necessarily.
Oh, it's proven not everyone watches NXT, because they have people in NXT that are just really, really over, and they come to the main roster, and it's nowhere near the same. I mean, there are some have done better than others, definitely, but some have not. And it's not just because of them deciding to go with the push or not go with the push. It's that not everyone watches NXT. Some parts of the country may watch NXT a lot more than others. So if you have someone debut or their first couple of shots are in one of these towns that maybe don't have tons of smarky little wrestling fans that love the internet, they're like, oh, who's this guy? And the reaction's not the same. And when you're watching on TV, when you see that, you go the next week to Raw, you're going to sit there on your hands too, because no one reacted to this guy last week. Who is? Tell us who he is. And that's not being done a lot, but with those vignettes, You can do it, and like you said, everybody can have those. And nowadays too, they want that surprise element. They want the debut after the night after WrestleMania, which a lot of times does work great. But aside from that, they should really think about going back to that type of system. But that's not just because NXT's around. They stopped doing that shit years ago and really barely, like, I remember Carlito had them, and it worked. He debuted, boom, he was over because he spits in the face of people who don't want to be cool, and he spit an apple in people's face, and people were like, who does this motherfucker think he is? He's spitting an apple on people. So when he debuts, boom, he's got heat. It worked for him, and maybe they've done some here and there, but just overall, they have not done that in a long, long, long time.
Yeah, like I say, you're a star before you ever step foot through the curtain. And if you come out there just cold, having to win them over on your in-ring ability, you're fighting an uphill battle. Because you can be the best wrestler on the planet, but it might take you 2 or 3 matches for them to become familiar with that. But you can get your personality over in one promo. And if you have 3 or 4 before you even show up, then you're over. If you're going to get over, then you've got all the chance to get over right out of the gate. I'm telling you, the second you walk out the curtain. So again, indie guys, get yourself a music video. Film yourself some generic "we're coming soon" vignettes. Don't mention the name of the promotion. Just "we're coming soon to your town or your promotion." And set up some different things that you can send these promoters upon before you arrive. And trust me, listen to the old Rev here when I tell you, it'll do you right. Do you right in the box office. It'll do you right with the audience reaction, and hopefully in your wallet as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't see that out there. I don't hear of that happening with independent wrestling and things such as that. But I mean, this day and age, everybody's got a smartphone. Everybody's got YouTube, Facebook, all that shit. And if While We Wrestle isn't going to tell people you're coming, well, fuck, go on their page and post it and say, hey, I'm coming. I don't think you should go in there and post promos every week. Try to do promos on Facebook and think that's just gonna work for you, and typing and all that stuff. Sometimes that kind of can seem a little silly to me, but to each their own. But yeah, just shooting a video, putting a video together, and you can use it multiple places, multiple times. Definitely, I don't think it can hurt anything, right?
No. I mean, I recommend sending it to the promotion and letting them put it on whatever social media avenue they choose. And if it doesn't fit in their plans, and you're just coming in to put somebody over, then obviously, then you're not going to need a video package. But if they want to do something with you, then you can already say, hey, well, I got this music video. We got these coming soon hype promos that you can air on your TV or on your VOD or whatever. And, when the audience, or in front of your live crowd on a big screen, and when we show up, then, all the better for us. So, giving you a free promotional seminar here on the Midnight Black Mass, because I'm a swell motherfucker. You get that?
Yeah, you're right. Obviously, you probably know when you're coming into a promotion what's going on and, what the plan is. So, yeah, if you're just some guy just showing up trying to get your foot in the door, yeah, what I said does not apply. I'm intending if you're a guy that that something's planned and you need to be over when you step out of the curtain the first time. That's kind of what I meant for sure, because there's clearly a difference. Sometimes you may not be as established of a guy, and you need to just go somewhere and get your foot in that door and start from the absolute bottom. I mean, that happens. Everybody's had to do it, so it's not a bad thing.
No, it's back to the business, man. So I've had to do it multiple times. You constantly have to. You constantly have to reinvent yourself a little bit. Constantly have to prove yourself, because there's always somebody new coming to climb and take your spot and come and outshine you. So this is not a business for people that want to rest on their past accomplishments, because you do that, then somebody else is a younger, hungrier bull is gonna come through the yard and take you out of the picture, baby. So yeah, you definitely gotta stay sharp. We're running out of time here for this week's edition of the show, though. So before we get out of here, Andrew, any final thoughts, closing comments for our wonderful listeners here tonight?
I just think they really need to consider the Midnight Black Mass wedding services. I just think we can cover you pretty much top to bottom. We'll find us a camera. We'll get us a nice camera set up too. We'll double as a photographer. We'll do it all.
Andrew's already stated before he will do amateur boudoir photography at a very discount price.
Very extremely discounted price. I mean, it depends. The price is lower depending on how hot you are.
I was waiting on that.
You knew it was coming.
Yes, I did.
You knew it was coming. So, Andrew, we know we can't find you anywhere, and that is intentional. So, when we can find you, I assure you'll let us know.
That is correct.
And you can find me on Twitter at Dragons Rejects, on Facebook.com/Rev Dan the Dragon Wilson. You can email me for booking information, dragonsrejects@gmail.com. Find me on Instagram at Dragons Rejects, and now on Snapchat at Dragons Rejects. And Fast Eddie Layne, you want to get your final plugs out of the way here before we call it a night?
Sure, no problem. By the way, I do accept bookings for announcing and commentary work through beyondringside@gmail.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, MySpace. It's still there, and there are live people. It scares me. And, of course, my home site is fasteddielane.com. For the station itself, by the way, if you hear something during the show tonight that you'd like to make a comment on or ask a question of either Reverend Dan or Andrew, chat room is open, beyondringside.com. Make yourself a username, pop on in. Doesn't cost any extra. It only takes a couple of seconds. And if you, like I said, put a question in there, I'll be more than happy to relay it to the guys, and they can probably answer it live on air. Also, from there, be sure to catch the media page at Beyond Ringside. Like I've never done this before, and I'm just stuttering my ass off tonight. By the way, for the record, before I go any further, Heyman has been on Raw for the last few minutes, made the direct challenge from Lesnar to Goldberg. So it's on. I think they were still talking about Survivor Series. I'd rather that wait until after the first of the year for the Rumble. Keep your eyes open on BeyondRingside.com and ProWrestlingRadio.net. There, I'm out the way.
All right.
Some bitch.
Well, folks, we appreciate you joining us. This has been another edition of the Midnight Black Mass. Now, Monday nights, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the Beyond Ringside Radio Network, going head-to-head with Monday Night Raw. So check us out each and every Monday. We'll be back next week. Keep one foot in the gutter and one fist in the gold. Good.